Goodbye, my Coney Island baby. Farewell, my own true love, my honey. I'm gonna go away and leave you. Never see you any. Never gonna see you any. I'm gonna sail upon that ferry boat. Goodbye, my Coney Island. Goodbye, my Coney Island. Goodbye, my Coney Island babe.
What I like about a place like Portobello is there's so much stimulus and activity and noise. Every time I come, I learn something. And a bookseller can help you do that. They can direct you. You know, you ask them questions, they can direct you to a book, tell you about it, and really tell you where all the great nuggets are in the book. That's education. Education with books isn't about sitting down and reading a book cover to cover. It's learning about how this author is connected to that author. If I had a choice between 1 year of going to all the best booksellers in London and talking to them about books and a 4-year college education, I would take that 1 year, and I think I would learn more. Hello there.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Yes.
I missed you last. It all started with my dear wife, who, after 3 years of marriage, turned to me and said, I am leaving you. To say I was shocked is a gross understatement. I was utterly amazed that she had any anxiety about our relationship whatsoever, which I suppose is typical of me, not really being that sensitive enough to spot it, but it shook me. When asked why, she said, I have one life. I want to enjoy that life. Therefore, if I've got to spend the rest of it with a bore, I don't see how I'm going to enjoy it. I was so shocked and upset, I left the house. I went out into the field and I started walking and crying more and walking and asking myself, why? Why has this happened to me? Why have I got myself in this mess? And incrementally, it got colder and colder, and I started shivering and getting hypothermia. And I thought, hang on, I'm not going to see the end of this story, am I? So, being a pragmatic sort of person, I headed back home. Straight through the front door, straight up the stairs, straight into the bath to get my body temperature up again. So I filled the bath to the fullest extent possible and then plunged myself into it. In doing so, the bath flooded and it went down into the kitchen where my wife was, and the water started coming through the ceiling. An intentional action, I am ashamed to say, but it was an intentional action. And I thought, what do I want from my life? What do I need to get out of my life? And what I decided was that I wanted fun. That's what I wanted. I wanted my life to be fun. And therefore, I then had to think, what were the things that made my life fun? Well, up to that point, my wife, undoubtedly, but before that and during it, the two things that intrigued me were books and clocks. I had, I suppose, about 20 clocks, none of which worked. Not one worked, because I'm not very dexterous with my hands. And so it became apparent books were infinite, clocks were finite. There are only so many movements. Whereas books, it has an infinite wealth. It doesn't matter whether you're melting snow in Canada, they've written a book about it. It doesn't matter whether it's the valves of the water system in the Liver building in Liverpool, they've got a book about it. It doesn't matter whether it's Galileo, Copernicus, Shakespeare or whatever, you were going to have a life that would be fun. And so it was that the next morning I went to work in the Marks and Spencer in Oxford and handed in my resignation. Much to the surprise of everybody, because I was on the management training scheme, and they thought, why? So the manager called me into his office. He said, whatever has brought this on? So I explained my personal situation, and he said, well, what do you know about books? Morning, John. What do you know about books? I said, nothing, except that I love them and they're interesting. So he said, well, how do you intend to go about it? I said, I have no idea whatsoever. All I do know is that my future is not with M&S. My future is with books. So I shall go and start, and if I fail, then fine, I've failed. But at least I'll have had a crack at it.